I love to talk about my journey. So
Well, we are so glad to have Nia Hodges all the way from St. Louis, the STEM queen herself, graduate of Jackson State University. We've got a room full here with us at Velma Jackson. This is our computer science engineering class, and we're recording this for all of our computer science engineering classes in Madison County schools, middle schools, and high schools, and for our YouTube channel. So we thank you so much for joining us today, just doing some incredible things in technology, really have set the bar high for other young ladies. And you told me yourself that when you were coming up, you were not aware of these technological careers that are available and are in need for other young people to get into. So thank you so much again.
thank you. Yes, I definitely was exposed to computer science and tech kind of late. Well, not late. It was my senior year of high school, but um, it was eye opening once I had the opportunity to major in it and really dive into it. So
Now, did you have a presentation for us today, or?
yes,
Sure,
I
we'd love
do.
to see it. I know it was last time it was excellent.
Thank you. Okay, can you see my screen?
I can. It's popping up. I know PowerPoint likes to delay sometimes.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Okay,
uh,
we're gonna try this again.
yeah, it happens.
Okay. This is working so well. I'll start off by introducing myself while this is loading. So I'm Nia Hodges, and I am a first year master's student at the university at Washington University in St. Louis. I'm so sorry, and I'm studying engineering, data analytics, and
Wow.
statistics.
Wow.
So it's definitely a new field for me. I'm coming from a background in computer science, and computer science is pretty broad. So I'm having an opportunity to really focus in on things that interest me. I'm not sure why this is not working now. Okay, I'll share my screen, and you all will just see the whole
That's
presentation.
fine.
Maybe if
That's
this
fine. We have people
doesn't
do that
work.
all the time for us.
Okay, because it's being funny. Okay, one more time.
There we go.
All
Yep.
right. Awesome. Okay, so why comp sci? That is the title, and comp sci is short for computer science. And I kind of already started my introduction, but I was introduced to robotics my senior year of high school in August of 2018. And May of 2019, I graduated high school and participated in a STEM program at Jackson State University, known as the Bridge to the Future program. I believe they're bringing it back this summer. During COVID, of course, it was harder to keep up with it, but anyone that is able to commute, I believe that is coming back. So I'm super excited about that. August of 2019, I began working on my Bachelor of Science in computer science at Jackson State University. Between June 2020 and April 2022, I interned with various defense companies, and I also conducted research with Jackson State's College of Science, Engineering, and Technology, and the U.S. Army Arctic, which is
Wow.
Engineer Research and Development Center.
Wow.
Yes. And some of those companies that I interned with were Northrop Grumman, Peraton, Leidos, NASA, and I'll talk about my most recent internship in a second. I graduated April of 2022 with my bachelor's in computer science, and that summer I interned with Lockheed Martin, their rotary and mission systems sector. And initially, that was going to be a job. I applied for a full-time job, and I was blessed to receive a fellowship from the university I'm at currently. And so I turned that job offer into an internship, and I spent the summer in Virginia where I worked more on software testing, which was a little out of my comfort zone, but I definitely learned some things that I'm using to this day from that experience. And I made some great connections. So I know you all have heard from Lockheed Martin.
Yeah, we had
They
we had some from Atlanta that do the helicopter simulators.
Yes. So they were one of those companies that really showed their face at Jackson State. And so even when I was interning with other companies, I'd always heard about Lockheed Martin. My freshman year, they made their name known on our campus. They spent a week with us doing different workshops
Wow.
and having different events. So I definitely was excited to work for them, and even more excited that they allowed me to transition into an internship so that I could still have that experience, even though I was going to continue my education. So that was last summer, and August of 2022, I began working on my master's, which is engineering data analytics and statistics. And I also began working in a research lab for computer vision. And
Wow.
so just to encapsulate everything, I started off with computer science, super broad. Even though it's broad, that means you can find a lot of different cool things to work on. Then I decided I'm really interested in artificial intelligence. So that kind of narrowed my focus. And now that I'm here, I'm working on computer vision, which is a subfield of artificial intelligence. So
Wow.
everything is encapsulated by computer science. But yeah, I'll go into more detail of why computer science being a broad subject of study is a good thing. So, okay, so computer science, this is just a popular meme where everyone has a different opinion about what computer scientists do. My mom thinks I'm one of the smartest people in the world, and I Google everything all the time. So it's definitely funny. But computer science is teaching a machine. So you're teaching a machine how to do things similar to how you would teach a child how to do things. And some real life examples of how computer science is used every day include searching things on Google or using the computer to write or draw. When you play video games, that's computer science. And when you're on your phone texting or taking pictures, that's also a product of computer science. So we use computer science every day in our lives, and whether we know it or not. So, and my opinion on computer science is that there's so much freedom in it. It's so broad, and you can find things that really align with your interests. You don't have to be the smartest person. You don't have to love math. You can find your thing. Let's say you're artistic. Some things you could do in computer science could be generate art or design virtual reality experiences. If you love music, you can create new production tools or visualize music. If you're interested in medicine, you could create a new wearable health monitor. If you're into sports, you can analyze sports data. You could create a fitness tracker. Maybe you're into politics. You could simulate political scenarios or create a new voter education tool.
Wow.
Say you are a culinary artist. I don't know, you love to cook. You could design a new recipe recommendation system. Wow. Or a smart kitchen system. There's so many different possibilities when it comes to computer science. And in the beginning, it might feel overwhelming, but as you learn, you'll decide, okay, this is what I'm really passionate about. And I'm also good with technology. Why not combine it? Why not make something Absolutely. That we need and no one else has thought of yet? Yeah. And so how do you get started? So in my opinion, I would start off just by trying to learn how to program. And there are a lot of free resources. My favorite is Code Academy. It's free and it's very interactive and easy to follow. And it's free, love free. Practicing, there are different projects you can find on the internet for free that you can recreate. And if you get stuck, all of the solutions are already available. You can join the community. On social media, there's a huge computer science community. And even in your own community, you might not realize that there are people in the fields that you might end up in. And so just reaching out to people and joining those groups and keeping up to date on what's going on. The fourth thing I would say is to apply for things. If you're still in high school, there are internships for high schoolers interested in robotics and computer science. And that's something I wish I would have known. I spent a lot of my summers at summer camps and, hanging out with friends. And I had the time. If I would have known, I could have been, in a program that would have been putting me ahead of the game for when I got to college. So there are programs for high schoolers. There are internships that want high schoolers, there are boot camps, there are scholarships. We love free. So apply, and all they can do is say no. And the last thing I would say is share. Share with your school and your community on what you're interested in, what you're working on. And you never know who knows who. Your own teacher knows so many people in this field. I'm sure he can connect you with someone who can help you with whatever you're working on or with whatever you're interested in. So that is the end of my slides. And if anyone has any questions,
and I got some from the students, but I had a few things I wanted to talk about first. Well, first of all, I thought that was great information and a great segue, because we're actually in class right now looking at how robots work, how they're programmed, how they're used in manufacturing, how they're used in a lot more things than we realize. When we hear robot, we think of Wall-E, the Disney, on the Disney movie, and that's an extreme case. But robotics are used in hospitals, in manufacturing, in kitchens. So I think that's a great point, that the AI and the robotics is just becoming such a huge part of every industry. And you mentioned about in the healthcare field right now, and my dad's a doctor, and what they talk about is because humans might miss a diagnosis. You can plug in symptoms to a computer now, and the robotic aspect can diagnose an illness that a human might miss. If there is, and you mentioned cooking, analyzing an ingredient, there could be something in an ingredient that could be dangerous to somebody that a human might miss. So having these technological skills are not only important, they could actually be helping society.
Exactly.
Now, before we get more into the tech side, I do want to talk briefly about you're from Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
You went to Jackson State, and now you're at a PWI, Washington University, St. Louis. And what I love to ask people that go to both is both universities have so many great things to offer in a different way.
Exactly.
I've met people that done PWI and then HBCU, or in your case, HBCU and then PWI. So talk a little bit about the differences between them and how both of them offer different things for the person that would be pursuing a degree there.
Okay. So my biggest difference, or I guess, so with Jackson State, of course, it's an HBCU. So I received community. I received support. I found myself. I grew up in a predominantly white school system. So going to an HBCU was definitely on my list. I didn't care where I went, it needed to be an HBCU. And so I really valued that sense of community. And it really helped me stay in the field I'm in, because computer science isn't easy. And so when I had people that looked like me in that same field, or people that have been through what I'm currently struggling with, it definitely encouraged me to stay and to continue. Now, at this current school, the community is not as strong, but the resources outweigh it, if that makes sense. So I'm the only Black person in my department at the moment. And so that can be it was weird. It was hard to adjust coming from an HBCU. But the resources, the people I'm meeting, I have professors who know CEOs of companies that are both in St. Louis and in other cities. And so the connections, the technology, we have a supercomputer here. So the type of scripts and programs that I can run here are larger than what I could while I was at Jackson State. So I'm learning more. Yeah. And so I think when you're deciding on what university to go to, there's always going to be a pro or a con, but you really just have to follow your gut. God wouldn't, I don't know if everyone's religious, but I don't think God makes mistakes. So I feel like wherever you end up, it's going to be for your benefit and you're going to gain something. I wouldn't trade my HBC experience for the world. And I feel like if I didn't go to Jackson State, I probably wouldn't have been prepared for here, because they equipped me with certain tools that might not have been all academic. They were survival skills at the same time. So while I'm here, it's like I know how to adapt. I know how to work through things that I shouldn't have to usually work through, but I made it out of Jackson State. I can make it here. So that's my comparison. Community resources. I think
that's a great comparison. And another huge pro, and this would be no matter HBCU or PWI, being in a major city it is fast paced. It is a different type of life, but it does have resources of technology. You're going to have a lot of opportunities for local internships in the larger cities. Now, obviously, with virtual, you're able to extend a little bit more now. But if you want the hands-on experience, St. Louis or a city like that could be a great positive in your career journey.
Exactly. And what I learned when I got here is St. Louis is actually, they're trying to turn St. Louis into the Silicon Valley of geospatial research. So that's what I research and work in geospatial. It's like radars, cameras, things of that nature. That's all here. They're building a $1 billion facility that should be done in the next couple of years. So if I'm still here, I could work there, So I think that is a plus. That's something that, I wouldn't have known if I didn't come here. And I'd never heard of geospatial research until I got here. So I think St. Louis has a lot to offer when it comes to STEM.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of my favorite cities, like we mentioned before we came on. Now, one thing that you're very vocal about, and you have been, is really changing stereotypes, changing narratives. Because we are a rural all Black community, very hardworking community, very heartfelt community, very passionate community. But the opportunities has just now started to reveal themselves to a lot of these kids. And you said even growing up yourself, you were kind of given the idea that I'm a Black female, I'm limited on what I can do. But that has changed greatly in the last few years, and there is such a huge need for more women and more minorities to get into these tech fields, because with it affecting so many people, you have to have different perspectives.
Exactly. I think that is one of the biggest things that I've come to realize, is that not only the push for diversity isn't just to have more Black faces in the room. They're making decisions that affect all of us. And so if we're not in the room, we might be affected negatively simply because they didn't have the voice of reason to say, like, this new project would negatively affect this rural community, but no one was thinking about them because no one's from there. So I definitely think we need to be in the room, not just to meet a quota, but to make sure everyone is thought of when these big decisions are being made.
Yeah. Now, and you talk about some of the research you've done. Obviously, I've got everywhere from 9th to 12th grade in here. What are some of the trends that you're seeing of possible advancements that they could be a part of coming out of high school?
Well, I will say AI, artificial intelligence, is really taking off. I don't know if anyone is familiar with Chat GPT or there's another resource called DALI 2. These are in artificial intelligence software or websites that are free to use that we're starting to build on. So I'm trying to, in a nutshell, it's like you can ask Chat GPT anything and it'll give you an answer as if it's a human, right? And so it's really just pulling from the internet. But what I'm seeing is all of these different researchers and students are trying to figure out how it works and build upon it. So I think as a high schooler, this would be a perfect time to just understand what's popular, what's going on. You might not be able to recreate some of this software, but to just be up to date with it, I think you can use it in your studies because everyone is using it here. And a lot of the things that I've learned that are helping me in my classwork, I could have been using, but we weren't exposed to it, right? So as a high schooler, you can stay up to date and then take the time to just learn the basics. I feel like there's no rush to create the next Facebook or, the next $1 million idea. Take this time while you're, not worried about the pressures of college to just learn a new skill. It's like learning math from the beginning. It's new, it can be scary. So just ease into it. Don't feel like you have to jump into majoring in computer science with no background. Like, you have the time to just learn. And even when you get to college, you'll continue to learn. You're never gonna be perfect because it's always evolving. I'm still learning. I told you I use Google every day. So take the time to learn the basics and also just stay up to date with what's popular. I think that's what I would do if I could go back.
Now, before I get to the students' questions, I do have one, and I like asking this opinion on this because tech is different than other fields. Because from what I've seen and heard, from the tech industry, you don't always have to have the full college degree to get your foot in the door. Because for kids that maybe, you know, they want to get into a tech field, but, you know, I don't really know the whole college thing is for me. There are unbelievable opportunities that would not require a degree in computer science in any tech field. For one, just doing a certificate at a community college in a year or two, I know they're more worried about having somebody with that experience in that software than they are training somebody that's been there with a college degree. And also the military, you know, obviously with your experience with Lockheed Martin, you know about the high-tech software and state-of-the-art technology that the military is using every day. And, you know, the Air Force, Navy, especially, if a kid wanted to do that, get paid instead of paying to learn that state-of-the-art IT and cybersecurity, information systems, you could be looking at a six-figure job without ever stepping foot on a college campus.
True. That is super true. Yeah, I definitely think I took the education route, of course, well, clearly, but there are plenty of other routes. People who are self-taught, I feel like they know more than I do, simply because they've learned how to learn. And I mean, college can teach you to learn how to learn, but I feel like there are multiple routes for a reason. Some people are better with boot camps and fast paced and you get the certification. Some people need a little bit more help. They need someone to guide them. I feel like that's more of a college program. But at the end of the day, whichever path you take, you can't go wrong in tech because it's growing. Some fields are kind of stagnant right now. And I think that's something high schoolers, especially seniors who are about to graduate, you should research. You know, if you're interested in being a lawyer, how many lawyers are there? You know, how many jobs are going to be available in the next 5 to 10 years? Now, if you're interested in computer science, you know that field is growing clearly. So it's like, don't pick based off of, you know, the job market alone, but that should be something you consider when you're thinking about longevity and stability. And whichever route you take, whether it be 4-year university, 2-year university, certification, boot camp, it's going to be worth it in the end. And some will be cheaper than others, but don't discount a 4-year university altogether because there's plenty of funding in STEM, especially if you're Black, especially if you're a minority, especially if you're a woman. Like, they will pay you to learn. So don't not apply. Still apply, but keep your options open and go where it's funded.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want anybody to think I'm discouraging people to go to college, because it, you know, a place like Jackson State, and like we said, we had Dr. April Tanner in the fall. There's a lot of opportunity coming from especially HBCUs and technology with the money they've gotten recently, and that will help diversify these companies and these fields. And obviously, if they want the college experience, a tech degree can be very useful. But I do have some questions from the students. This first one is Layla Young. She's a senior. Or Miss Velma Jackson, who's going to be going to Spelman University in Atlanta. And she wants to get into nursing, but that was a good point about or in healthcare. She wants to get into healthcare. But healthcare is going to have a lot of AI coming in. So it's important to really have a good balance in that. But she asked, did you ever think about majoring in anything before you got your heart set on STEM?
Yes, but it was, I guess, well, no. For me, I love math. And so I knew it was going to be something related to math, but I didn't know what I could use math for. Now, of course, now I know, like, you could have a math degree and do plenty of things. But in high school, I just thought I needed to do something with numbers. And I guess with computer science, it kind of connected the dots for me. It was like, I'm good at math, but I'm also creative. I'm interested in these things. I want to help people. I want to make a difference. And it just, things fell into place with computer science for me. But I feel like with college, you don't have to know when you go. Like, you can go in undecided, or you can start off in one major and change. And I feel like that happens to so many people, but we don't really talk about it. Graduating over after the 4-year mark, if you take another year, that's okay. Everyone doesn't have to finish by the 4-year mark. You know, everyone doesn't have to have it all decided as soon as they step foot on campus. So if you're still wavering, if nursing or healthcare or something else, get to Spelman's campus. Some of the electives you'll take, you'll figure out, ooh, I really like this class, or this topic really interested me, or I got really excited when we started, you know, learning about this. Then that'll kind of guide you, because college is a time where you get to figure yourself out and figure out, you know, what's something you could see yourself doing in the long run.
Yeah. Now here's a good question. This is another senior. This is Carl Tavius Ross. Now he wants to be a welder, but I think that even the trades are going to have a lot of engineering skills, especially in welding, because you may see some robotic welders coming up. You're going to need a certified welder to operate those machines. But he asked, do you prefer to work independently or as a team when you're working on a project?
I prefer to work independently. I think that's a personality trait of mine. But in the real world, you're going to have to work with people. There are going to be things that you just don't know. And so regardless of what you're used to or what you prefer, you're going to have to be able to work with people. And I don't think computer science is I work at a desk all day alone type of job. That some people think that, but there's a lot of collaboration. You're gonna have to ask people for help. So yeah, I like to work alone though, but I can't. So
And that's a good point, because a common misnomer is that computer science people are at a desk all day, and that's not true. Especially if you're a person that likes taking things apart and likes, the people that run the servers, they're with those wires and with screwdrivers and stuff all day. So it is, if you're a hands-on person, you know, uh, computer science could be surprisingly very fitting for it.
exactly. And if you're someone who does like to work with people and you are interested in some type of STEM field, people need project managers. I don't think that was something I really knew about in the beginning, is that you can be interested in STEM and be a people person, and that work in your favor to where you can manage projects and help other computer scientists work together in a more cohesive way, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, and
if
we
you're
actually had
if
a
you
couple
are
project managers early this semester. We had one with C Spire, and we had another one that in Minnesota that builds trains and winches. So obviously, there's a lot of engineering going on in both of those. So that is a perfect example. I'm glad you mentioned that. Here's a good question. This is Jacayla Page. She's a sophomore, one of our volleyball players here, and she asked, "Coming from Alabama to St. Louis, what is the most different thing you've experienced?"
the weather, I remember the first time it snowed, I walked to my car and my windshield was just there, it was frozen. I couldn't see. And I called my dad and I was like, I can't see, I can't go to campus. He was like, you have to defrost it. And I was like, if it's not defrosted in 10 minutes, I'm going inside, because it was freezing and I didn't actually own a real coat. So the winter really threw me for a loop when I got here. But it's warm now, so I'm okay.
Yeah, it's a beautiful city, but it does get cold. This is Aaliyah Chesser. She's a junior, and she asked, "Was computer science your first career choice?"
Kind of. Really, I wanted to be a data scientist, and that's a subfield of computer science. I love data. I think I'm very analytical. And the reason I wanted to go to grad school is because I would see that most data scientists had a master's degree. And I mean, you can work your way up, but I forgot what type of personality I am, but it's the type that needs like control. And so I was so determined to get a master's degree first versus try to work my way there. But now that I'm here, I don't know if I necessarily want to be a data scientist. Um, and so I think the fact that it's changing after I've already gotten, the bachelor's degree, I still want to stay in the same field. But there's so many opportunities. I don't know what I want to do. I'm waiting for the next door to open just to see what's available. So
Yeah, and that's a great thing about the field, is if you get sick of being in one particular area, it is very transferable.
right.
These companies want people that can think. They're not so much worried about, how smart you are. They want people that can solve problems and can be more efficient and work with the technology they have. Here's a good one. This is Justin Clerk. He's a senior. He's interested in the video game industry, but he asked, "As a woman in STEM, what are some challenges you have faced that are unique to you?"
I definitely, um, from a woman's perspective, I have been overlooked on teams. And it's something that I am still learning to adjust to, especially as a Black woman. I try not to respond in the way they would be able to stereotype me, if that makes sense. Yeah. So being overlooked, people taking credit of my work, or not trusting that I know what I'm doing, is something that I'm sure many women in my field have experienced. How to overcome this, I think it just takes learning to forgive, because people are imperfect, but also knowing that I don't have to prove myself to people. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, and I think that's a unfortunately a common answer. But like we said, the world is changing, the country's changing. Perspectives have changed, but it's going to take people like you and these kids to get into the field and change the face of it. So the stories and the answers like that are less and less. This is Brenda Escudero. She's a senior, and she said, "This is an interesting question. How much do you think technology will continue to be a part of our daily lives?"
It's going to be a part of every aspect of your life, and I say that in a good way. I am excited about the growth. I know some people can be a little weary about their privacy and things of that nature, and that is an important aspect. We deserve privacy, but I feel like the more we rely on technology, the more we need to be willing to give our data, if that makes sense, because I would love to live in a smart city. I'm just going to put it out there. But in order to live in a smart city, you have to be willing to release some levels of privacy. And so it'll make life easier, but then it's also, it's a trade-off. But I think technology is growing at a pace to where, like, you probably don't even leave the house without a phone. If you don't have your phone, you have a watch. Like, you have some type of technology. You're always being tracked. At this point, it's like, embrace it, because it's for our good. We're trying to make life easier and more efficient, in my opinion.
And what a lot of people that fight the change is that the overwhelming majority of technology makes your life easier. Very little of it actually makes it more difficult. Because how many times we've been driving saying, "Man, where was this GPS when I was a kid?" It'd been a lot easier. But I mean, simple things like that, and the technological advances to GPS systems.
Exactly.
With the space and geospatial stuff. That's stuff that is a huge breakthrough that could develop even more. Now, it's got one more from the student. This is Amari Williams. He's a ninth grader, and he asked, "In school, what programs did you have to help you learn more about STEM?"
In college, right? Or in high school?
He just says in school. So let's just say in both.
Okay. So in high school, we had a robotics team. It was fairly new, but it exposed me to programming. I realized I wasn't really hands-on with the robots, but I like the programming part. And in college, the programs that really helped me was, well, I wouldn't call it, there are programs and there are clubs, National Society of Black Engineers, Society of Women Engineers. You'll have, some schools have an organization called Trio STEM. So there's plenty of STEM organizations. But the research that I was able to do, that was how I learned. Like, classwork, projects are temporary, but if you have the opportunity to work with a professor or with an industry, someone in the industry, I feel like that hands-on guidance is what really taught me. And just being able to fail in a safe area. Like, I could ask for help whenever, and I learned how to ask for help. I think that was something that I had to learn, how to admit that I needed help. But the programs outside of research and the clubs are just me. Those free resources I told you about, I honestly use them. I'm not self-taught, but there's so many free resources on Google and everything. Like, you can learn it at any point. You don't need a teacher. I'll say that. That's why a lot of people are self-taught, because there's so much data on the internet for us to access and learn. So
yeah, and one thing you mentioned there was talking about the internships and the networking, because if you go to college, the academics are extremely important, obviously, but making those connections when you graduate, you can't just be a person that just goes to class and goes home. That will get you a degree, but it's not going to get you a job. So being able to put your name out there, being able to network and communicate, because you need the technical skills, but you need the soft skills as well. You've got to be able to talk. You got to be able to, the old saying is, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I go one step farther. It's who knows you. So you may know, but if they don't know you, you're going to find yourself locked out. But obviously, it can be done, and you're a great example of that. Now, we're almost out of time. And as always, we thank you for joining us. I learn something every time you talk, and it's just amazing what all you're doing. But before we go, tell these kids why computer science needs them. Why do they really need to consider? And even if they don't want to be a full-time computer science professional, they need to have these skills. Why does it need them?
Okay. Computer science needs you because you are the future. That sounds like such a cliche, but in all honesty, every decision that is being made, every software that is being developed, there's no input from you. And so I feel like they're not going to benefit you as much as they could. They're not going to benefit us as much as it could if we aren't in the room. And I feel like we are so creative. Not women, minorities, everyone from underrepresented organizations or underrepresented communities, we have different experiences. And I feel like those experiences play a big role in what we can create, what solutions we can come up with. And so that's why we need to be in that room. I think about the water issues in Jackson all the time. And I just wish that I could do something about it. And in reality, I can. I might not be able to do that right now, but I'm in this field. I'm going to have a say in these different, equitable solutions that they're coming up with. And so in my hopes are that my experience, my time in Jackson at Jackson State will have a role in how we can fix that. And so you all might live in a situation where you see something that needs to be changed and you might not be able to do that right now, but in this field, you will have that say and that power and that, ability. So I think about your future self and think about the people in your community. Absolutely. And think about how you could help them.
Absolutely. Well, again, we thank you so much for joining us. Just such great advice, such great wisdom, and just keep doing some amazing things up there in St.